Hello and welcome back to my Pokemon Journeys review series. Today we are reviewing episode 32, Celebi, A Timeless Promise, an episode which sees us get a brand new opening, but I won't be talking about that as I made a separate video going over it, so be sure to check that out, and I hope you enjoy. So this episode is the very first episode ever, not counting specials or side episodes, where Ash didn't appear, so it was very strange, but honestly Go held his own in this episode. And it was a really solid episode with a lot of emotional scenes. This episode starts off with Go and his parents heading to Azalea Town again. They were there 3 years ago, but they didn't enjoy themselves properly because of the rain, so they wanted to change that this time around. But his parents just fell asleep as soon as they got there, which leaves Go to tend to himself, which is what he's used to. It was really nice seeing Azalea Town again. It was a lot better animated than when we first saw it in the original series. You could see the houses were all surrounded by trees and it looked really cool. So the focus of the episode is about Go. He sets off to try and catch some Johto Pokemon, but we get a really long flashback sequence of him and his friend Tokyo when they were younger, 3 years ago. Go starts out looking for Mew after his encounter with it at Oak's lab. I like that this referenced that episode in this, and he meets Tokyo, who is looking for Celebi at the same time. They argue at first, but they quickly become friends and they seem to have a lot in common, so Go helps him try and look for Celebi. I really like the dynamic between these two characters in a really good setting. I really enjoyed the return to the Johto region a lot. It showcased off the Pokemon really well, showing all sorts of Pokemon in the forest and in Azalea that Go and Tokyo were encountering while looking for Celebi. They spent the whole day looking for it, and maybe it did drag on a little too much, but it was a good way of building their friendship, which got a nice payoff in the end. Go and Tokyo had a nice conversation while looking up at the stars. They just tell each other random facts about Pokemon and show off how much they both love Pokemon. Go reminded me of Ash a lot in this episode, which makes sense as he was the main protagonist of this episode, taken over from Ash. Tokyo also mentions how the moon reminds him of the Clefairy and how they dance under the moon before they evolve, which reminds me of episode 6 of the original series, Clefairy and the Moonstone, where we see that exact thing. So Go and Tokyo promise to meet back up the next day to continue the search for Celebi. The next day comes and Tokyo doesn't show up, which gives Go some real big trust issues, which could explain the line from episode 3, "So you're one of those guys." He thinks Tokyo has just lied to him and left him on his own, and not having his parents around much, Go is quite lonely as a kid, and his story really hit home in this episode, and it was really sad to watch. Go arrived to the forest in the present day and he wanted to just look for more Johto Pokemon. Fortunately, he kept being reminded of all the fun times he had with Tokyo in little flashbacks while he was catching Pokemon. He ended up catching Ariados and Pineco, which both reminded him of Tokyo. It was such a solid backstory for Go, and it's an episode that came at a perfect time as people are still unsure about Go as a character. I personally think he's a great character. It's just tough to focus on him bonding with all of his Pokemon as there are so many of them. But in this episode he brings along Scyther, Farfetch, Sobble and of course Raboot, so we see he's using more of his other Pokemon more frequently. The episode ends with Go finding the Celebi shrine, and he finds a note from Tokyo which tells him that he didn't mean to break the promise that they made. He was just sick and he couldn't make it out. I actually love this. I assumed it would be that Celebi took him back to the future or something to do with time travel, but it wasn't that at all. It was just he was sick. He tried to contact Go the next day, but Go had left by then. For 3 years carrying around the bitterness that his friend had broken the promise, but he didn't. And what do you know, just after, Tokyo finally appears in the present day just as Go is reading his letter, and he tells Go that they have a lot to catch up on. But we don't really see the conversation, but it was such a nice ending with the narrator coming in while the two spoke, and we got a glimpse of Celebi and a shiny Celebi. I'm certain that the shiny Celebi is here because of the movie. A theory that could be said is that this is the same Celebi from that movie, which has managed to travel across a different universe. But that's too crazy, so I'll leave it at that. Overall, this episode was incredible, a fantastic backstory for Go, and I'm sure he has now come to terms with his past and the fact that Tokyo never abandoned him, which will make him more of a positive person going forward. I'll give this episode a 9 out of 10. The preview for the next week's episode looks a little wacky, but basically Go is getting a Heracross, and that's all I'll say. I really hope you enjoyed this week's review. Please let me know what your thoughts are in the comments below. What would you rate it out of 10? Please like and subscribe if you did enjoy, and see you next time.